you've been a busy dude on podcasts. I've been seeing you pop up on a bunch of different podcasts.
Dude, it's been hectic, man. Just a lot. We got the book coming out on the 23rd, so it's just pushing out as much as possible and trying to get my story out there and see what kind of reaction people have. It's a fun experience, but I gotta cram it in, because at some point we have to start focusing on monetization and things like that, because we can't just have fun forever. We got bills to pay. So
That's a fact.
Yeah, so this is kind of just like cram period as far as the podcast go, get the book out. And then once the book release is done, it's just all about the YouTube channel and, really putting a lot of energy into the channel because it does pay, and the following is a bunch of great people on there. So I just really want to take what we're giving to those guys and just take it to the next level.
Yeah. Like I said, I've seen you popping up on a bunch of podcasts. I saw you were on Cleared Hot, which that's a pretty big one. So I bet that was kind of exciting.
Yeah. And Andy was a really cool dude. I can't talk too much about the future of what we're working on, but we got something going, and I'm really excited about it, and I think it's gonna just smash on. I think it might break the internet. So hopefully me and him are not done talking.
Yeah, he seems like a cool dude. I mean, I know him just through listening to him on his podcast and others. And
yeah,
over the past year, I've really, that's probably one of my favorite podcasts. I listen to that one more than any of them. And it's kind of funny because I think you're our second guest now that's been on his, that's come on here. Mm-hmm. And even though I think we had you booked on this before you went on that, so I'm not like trying to steal his guests or whatever, but he's had some interesting people on there.
Yeah.
And there's a couple I've reached out to because I'm like, man, I want to talk to that guy. And we've had one or two of them on already. Mm-hmm. And yeah, he seems like a good dude. That's pretty cool that you were on there. That's a pretty big platform.
He's super intelligent and super articulate, you know what I mean? So I think that was, the kind of the challenge with talking to him is like to try and like stay up with his humor and like the way that he's processing the conversation, because I'm just there to talk, you know what I mean? Drink some whiskey and talk, and he's on a different level. He's really analyzing and he's super articulate. So but it was a good time, and he's challenging as a host. He's really challenging for those reasons. And I think that's probably why he's so successful, is just because whether you want to just BS and have some whiskey and BS about your life, or if you want to get in the nitty gritty and really, grind out some issues, it's fair game, and he's not going to shy away from it. So yeah, I'm happy to have done it, and he's a cool guy, and I hope this project we're talking about goes in the future. I hope it works, because I think it'll be really good.
Yeah, that's cool. It's cool that you're getting out there and you're getting these opportunities. I've always, for a long time, I've followed kind of this whole like veteran influencer world that's kind of become a thing over the past few years. And I'm not a vet. Kevin here is, but I've always been fascinated by military and veterans and stuff like that. And every now and then somebody will pop up who I didn't know about. Like you were one of them, which has surprised me because you have a big following. And then I think, you messaged me. I'm like, oh, who's this guy? And I look into you a little bit, and I see you got especially on your YouTube, you got a big following. I'm like, oh shit, I'm surprised I haven't heard of him yet. So it was cool. It's kind of cool to find these guys who are finding a second, or in your case, like third career, and having success.
Well, and that's absolutely true. And that's one of the things. I haven't been in this game for very long, and nor have I even planned on being in this influencer circle of people. Like I didn't know anything about it. I just knew that I needed to do something that was fun for me, and so I was like, well, I'll do a YouTube channel, and no one's going to watch it, but who cares, man? It'll be fun for me to get it out there. And if it helps one person, then cool. And all of a sudden, like, I'm starting to get like immersed. And like you said, that there's this like culture of people that are really out there hustling and trying to make this a career. Some of them extremely successful at it, like Andy and Mike Glover and Carl over at Tactical Rifleman. Some of these guys have just like they've crushed it. And then I'm like, they're starting to tell me like, hey man, you're one of the guys that one of the influencers in our little group of people, and we want to come together as a community more and not be like, not make sure there's no rifts and things like that. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm one of what? Like, yeah. I didn't even, so it's been humbling. It's been cool. And I'm just going to stay true to me, man, and just be honest. And I think that's why it works, is because I don't try to play this like I'm cooler than anybody thing with the SF side. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'd rather talk about my mistakes. And I've even got calls from old teammates. They're like, hey man, like, can you not be talking about the things that we did wrong all the time? Like, some of the things we did on the team are really good. And I'm like, dude, I get that, man, but there's enough war stories out there of people doing great things. It's like, that's just not my experience with it. I'd rather focus on things that went wrong so people could learn from our mistakes,
Well, yeah, and focusing on that too is like, that shows the humility, right? That shows that vulnerability of being able to talk about how I fucked up. And we talked about that in the last podcast, like in depth. Like, if you lack vulnerability, humility, you're not going to grow. You can put on your fake armor and pretend like you're a man, but really you're not going to grow. And you're going to be stuck as a little child the rest of your life. And we see a lot of that. You see the with their fucking like 12-inch lifted trucks, they're little scared boys because they're afraid to be vulnerable, right? And so you gotta accept those mistakes. I had a hard fucking time doing it after like my second deployment. I was like, man, fuck, like, I just put everything up, put the walls up. I was like, fuck this, And once I let all that go, I was a healthier person for it, after a while, after maybe a relapse or whatever. But, I realized that I couldn't do it on my own, which I thought I could, because it's really fucking hard to write your own op orders sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, you need someone for direction, even if you don't think you do. And I excelled a lot because of that, like giving myself to somebody else and let them take the reins a little bit, I thought that was helpful. And that's why, like, with the YouTube channel and everything else, that's kind of what you're offering, you know what I mean, to people. I see it that way, you know what I mean? So I think it's really cool. Yeah,
I appreciate it, man. That's what it's all about. I sent a small group of people like the digital copy of the book, and they kind of hit me with the same feedback. Like, damn, dude, like that was just the same buck, that's on the YouTube channel talking about your mistakes and trying to help people grow from it, instead of talking about, how great of war stories and how you pushed this number of people of ISIS and you schwacked this dude. And
yeah,
it's like, I'm not bagging on any of those books, but it's like, that's just not my cup of tea, and I don't read any of these Navy SEAL books or Green Beret books or any of the ones that are just like talking about how they went and schwacked the whole world. And, they took mile-long shots, and, but there's a large part of our community that wants to hear those stories, because they want to live through, vicariously through that, or they just really appreciate the vet community. They know they're not going to take that route. Maybe they just did a different path in life. You know what I mean? So but I just feel like that's just not me. And it's not what I like. It's not the kind of things that I put in my headspace. So why am I going to go and try to replicate that? It's just not who I am.
Yeah, no, I found that out really early on, before when I was first put into, I was in Iraq in 2008. I was a SAW gunner. And when I got moved to the sniper section, our company commander was a former commanding officer at sniper school. So he was all about his Bravo 4s and shit. And so he's like, before, I'm going to send you to school to get back or anything like that, you're going to read Sniper on the Eastern Front, by Sepp Allerberger, the German sniper. And a lot of that, I would say half that book is just his fucking mistakes and like what he went through in it. And plus it was a different war, you know what I mean? It wasn't about bravado, you know what I mean, in that sense. is about him like fucking up because he let his spotter get exposed and he gets shot in the face and his tongue's hanging out of his jaw. And he's sitting for 3 hours with him while he's bleeding and his tongue's flapping around and he's gargling. And and he just finally fucking dies. He's like, I sat there with him for 12 hours until I could move out in the darkness. 3 hours while he was still alive, the other hours while he was just dead, fucking staring at me, And it goes on, like him getting stuck in a trench and having to fucking beat a dude to death with his buttstock who looked like he was 14 years old, and it was about all of his mistakes. Like, why did I end up here? Why did I do this? Why did I choose? He said he really didn't have much of a choice either. But anyway, I'd say half that book's about him fucking up and getting people killed, his spotters killed, right? And so that was why he made us read that. He's like, you're not fucking tough guys. You're expendable resources and you're going to probably get fucked up. And so you need to understand this. And it was a big eye opener. I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, you're not just part of a fucking 9-man squad anymore. Like, shit gets real, when you kind of get out of that element. And so, no, anyway, that was what I took away from that book. And it really helped a lot. So I like books like you're talking like yours, because you need to read that shit. You can't just read all the cool stuff. You've got to read, everything.
Yeah, no. And just what you said about that, I want to go read that because I mean, that sounds like something I could learn from. And that sounds like something I could relate to. And I think, guys are kind of resonating with the channel because these are guys that really want to go special operations or even not special operations. A lot of them just want to be, infantrymen, but are afraid that they're just not good enough. And the last thing they need is just another dude talking about how great he is. And it's like, man, I've messed up in so many ways and I'm so broken, still trying to fix myself, still trying to, overcome my demons and stop making mistakes. Listen, you got to just try. Like at the end of the day, whether you think you're good enough or not, you got to put yourself out there and give it your best shot. And then what comes from that, you either, like I said, you're either succeeding. What do they say? You're either winning or you're learning. Mm-hmm. And if you could truly embrace that kind of mindset, then, you're going to be unstoppable.
I think that's important. We've touched on this multiple times, but having somebody like yourself, who's a pretty accomplished person. I mean, you were a Green Beret, you've done a lot of things and you still got problems. You still got shit doesn't always go right for you. And I think that's really important for the average everyday dude to see. Someone that might look up to you sees that, oh man, he's got his problems too. Okay, maybe I'm not that fucked up. Maybe I can get through these problems. And maybe people can
absolutely.
And maybe people can look at somebody who has gotten through some stuff and found some success and think, okay, maybe that's a path I can follow in order to get out of the shit I'm in. And I think it's an important thing. And that's like this whole veteran entrepreneur influencer, if that's what you want to call it, world. That's one reason I love it, is because I see these guys who have done things I can't even think of. I've never been to war. I've never served my country, but I see these guys who have, and I have this deep respect for them. And I think there's a lot of guys just like me who never did serve, but they have a fascination with that world. And someone like me who's on the outside looking in, personally, all the guys I respect are the ones like you were talking about. They don't talk about how they fucked everybody up all the time, and they don't talk about how cool they are. They dig deep into their issues, and they're looking to make the world a little bit of a better place. And like Andy Stumpf is a prime example of that, with what he's doing with his podcast and having guys on who have these crazy stories. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to bring guys on who are impressive individuals, but also just good people, and can show other people out in the world, people that are listening to this that might have never heard of you, are going to know who you are now and see that you've done a lot of things, but you have your battles. And I mean, you went into detail on it on Andy Stumpf's podcast of your childhood. You had a crazy fucking childhood, and you got through that, and you came out better on the other end. And that's important for people to see, because there's a lot of people who grew up in shitty households,
Yeah, a lot of people that grew up losing feel like,
and then, and a lot of them, especially I think we broke up.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, man. Yeah, just it's a lot of people just create, like, if they had hard times, it's easy to fall in that victim mentality trap. And to me, like, there's nothing worse than someone that takes the one life that they have to live and decides to play the victim role. And it's like, if you could just stop and realize in that the struggle has made you stronger, not weaker, then you'll never again have to play or feel the need to play the victim role. Like, you should look at, like, if you grew up really rough, you grew up in gangs, or you grew up poor or abused. Um, if we could start to change that idea of that, and shift it towards, well, I'm stronger because of it, and people start to feel empowered by the fact that they had these struggles, man, these kids would be unstoppable.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, it's like they're sitting there comparing themselves. At least I know I did, was like, you're looking at the kids that have money, and you're looking at the kids, and it seems like life is just easy for them because their parents, as it should be, their parents are teaching them how to communicate with other people, how to get along, how to be liked, and their parents are doing a great job. So they're giving them all these skills. So life just seems like super easy, but then, later in life, you're going to have to start facing your challenges. And that's when I felt like all the trauma started to kick in for me. Cause it's like, I've been fighting, since I was young, and now, life is trying to deal me a tough blow. We got this, by comparison, this is chill. This is cake.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another important thing. We've talked about this a million times on here, but people who have struggle, if they can look back on that struggle and the shit they've been through, usually it seems like everything else going on is not that big of a deal. And like listening to you on podcasts that you've been on, listening to you kind of opened up stuff in my mind where I had a pretty good childhood. I'm not saying it was that bad, but there was some shit. And listening to some of the stuff you were saying, like, maybe was making me remember some things that happened that probably shouldn't happen, things like that. And I'm like, oh wow, like that shit you just kind of put away and you don't deal with. And I think that's a cool thing to hear a guy like yourself, being vulnerable and talking about the stuff you went through as a kid and the stuff you saw. Because then there is guys like me out there who are going to hear that, and hopefully it's going to help them. Like, oh man, maybe that's something I can work on. Work on myself a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't acknowledge a lot of shit that happened when I was younger because I thought, oh, I'm resilient. It doesn't matter. It's like, no, it does matter because it kind of formed who you are. Like being like 6, 8, 9, 10 years old, with my mom in a fucking trailer park when she was doing drugs and having like the fucking all the crackhead motherfuckers like beat me up, and they're like in their 20s. I was a young kid, put my dog in a microwave and shit. And then like, oh, no wonder I run away from that kind of stuff. I don't like really even drinking, And when I see people who look inherently evil or act that way, all I have is like just fucking pure hatred for them. Like just apathy. Like I want to fucking kill you, And that's why. So it's like, hey, maybe if I acknowledge that, I won't be so aggressive with certain types of people, and I can understand them and realize maybe they're hurting. Their life sucks, right? Yeah. Because that applies to, I would say, half the veterans I meet. Half of the guys who are ass kickers, who are always looking forward. They always have that question in their head, like, what am I going to be when I grow up, even if they're 40, And there's the half that are, like you said, the victims that just want to isolate themselves with other guys like them and talk about how hard and how bad their fucking lives are, while they're collecting 100% disability. It's like, no, motherfucker, you've been given a fucking second chance with this money that's given to you. And a lot of them saw like, I don't know, one fucking firefight and they're collecting 100%, which is bullshit. Okay. Like, sorry, I'm going to be toxic right now. But like, I think that's all bullshit. People that saw one fucking rocket attack, like, cool. How about watching your fucking friends die around you? How about actually having to be not sitting in a fucking, like calf or blod your entire deployment? And I'd say half the people I meet had that environment and are acting like they're victims. I'm like, no, dude, wake the fuck up. Like, I don't want to hate them. I want them to change their perspective and see guys who keep on pushing forward which I would say the majority of the time are going to be like Green Berets and SEALs, right? Guys who are naturally resilient. And I want to be like, oh, fuck, I can be better. I can do better, because that's a good example for me to follow, you know? And that's what I want to see for people like that, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think even what you just said about your childhood, I mean, dude, that's everything you said resonated. Like, you talk about the dog and the microwave, people are like, instantly, I thought about, being held upside down and by my ankles and dunked into fish tanks, by boyfriends. And it's like, so as soon as you said the dog in the microwave thing, it's like people don't realize how twisted shit gets. Like when you grow up around that kind of environment, like there's no rules, there's no law, there's no like this is okay, that's not okay. People are just twisted and they do like evil things, and that's really important. One thing that kind of irritated me, I'm not gonna lie, is like fans, or I don't want to call them fans, but people that listen to the podcast and they kind of reach out to me like, man, you're gonna, what is some guy told me, I see a lot of like self-sabotage in your future because you haven't dealt with your past if you don't get your stuff under control. And I'm like, dude, first of all, that's not helpful like at all. Like telling someone from your perspective of listening to what they had to say that like you see them like going down a dark path. It's like, obviously, bro, like that's the whole point of this stuff. But at the same time, we have to, push that stuff aside. We got to keep digging in. Like you got to, so I would never tell you, I guess the point of saying that was to never, like, I would never tell you, oh man, you should do something with that. It's like, dude, I have no idea what you should do with that. All I know is for me, and I immediately resonated with what you said. And all I know is that for me is like, well, and you said it too, is like, we just packed it away, right? We push that stuff out. And when you start to pull it out and kind of dig into it, it really helps us figure out why we act the way we do. And, why, victims piss us off now. Cause it's like, dude, you don't know what being like a real victim is, because this is one thing I said in the book is like children are actual victims. Like it's the only time that victim mentality is like legit, right? Cause when you're in the trailer and, your mom's doing dope, if you go run away, what's going to happen? The cops are going to come get you and just take you right back.
Yeah.
So in that scenario, you are a victim. Like you can't change your environment. You can't, be proactive. You can't get your shit together and just go be better. You can't. You have to just deal with it until the law or your age or whatever. So you're actually a victim. And you know what? That's probably why we have no, people that grew up like us, so we have no like room for this whole victim thing. It's like, because you don't know what it's like to be a victim. Because if you woke up tomorrow and you decide you're going to get your shit together, there's no one stopping you. There's no one forcing you not to. There's nobody, the law isn't going to force you to not get your shit together. People would be proud of you and they would encourage you.
Yeah.
So you're not a victim, so figure it out.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, my childhood was not horrible, especially compared to others that I've people I know or people I've heard stories of. I had my shit, like my birth father was a piece of shit. Luckily, I had a stepfather that stepped in and showed me the correct path of life. But I seem to, and that was as a young child, the stuff with my birth father. So I kind of was always attracted to other guys that came from shitty households. And I always felt like I needed to like look out for them. And I got that from my mom and my stepdad, because they would take people in. I mean, Kevin knows we grew up together. Mm-hmm. My house was full of kids always. And my parents would just take them in, and I would kind of just gravitate towards those people that came from a shitty place because I wanted to get them out of it so bad. And there's some that did. Some, Kevin's a prime example. You didn't follow the path.
Right.
And we have other friends, like Andrew. Mm-hmm. He grew up in a shitty environment, and he ended up joining the military. He's still in. He's a recruiter now. And
nice.
He's a very successful guy, and he's one of our best friends, and he came from some shit. People can get out of that shit and find a different path, but sometimes they need someone to show them the way to do that. And that's what I think is cool about what you're doing, you're out here being vulnerable, you're talking about your shit, somebody might see that and know it's possible for them too. And I know for me, because of growing up like I did and seeing, especially with my friends, the way that their households were, I kind of have a low, my bullshit meter. It doesn't go far. Like if I see someone who's going to bring on drama and they're just going to make shit bad, I push them away real quick. And I haven't always been like that. I used to kind of let it happen, and I don't anymore. I can't do that. I just cut them out of my life. And I have family members I don't talk to.
Oh yeah.
It's because just because their blood doesn't make them a good person. And sometimes you need to do what's best for you. And especially when you have children and a family of your own, you got to move on and do what's best for you and them. And so there's people in my life that are blood family I don't even talk to, because it's not worth my time. You're never going to change them.
And you only live once. You can't just be around shitty people your whole life.
No,
you know?
and you need to surround yourself with good people, because I think it helps you be a good person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing I love about what we've done with this podcast. We've had, this is the 22nd episode, I think. Yeah, 22 episodes we've recorded, and we're meeting a lot of really cool people like yourself that if we wouldn't have started this, we probably would have never met you. And we have some other really cool people lined up we're going to go meet soon. And we've become friends with some of the people and it's weird because we're doing this through Zoom, and you lose a little connection through Zoom. As you're probably well aware, you've been out on the podcast circuit with some in person, some through Zoom. It's not the same through a video call. It's just not.
No.
But we're doing our best with what we have right now, and we've had some people though we've talked through Zoom and kept in contact with them and made some cool friends and met some really cool people. And I'm kind of rambling about it, but that's starting this podcast has been really cool to meet just awesome, good people and create these relationships. Cause I think if you get a community of all these people getting together, and like Kevin and myself, most people don't know who the fuck we are, and people are learning who we are through this. And I hope we can be part of this community of podcasts and people that people can look to and think, okay, I'm going to go listen to these guys right now, because maybe it's going to help me out. Maybe one of their guests is going to help me out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, totally. No, it's really cool that, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like, we've only had good guests so far, which is fucking crazy. You're supposed to have like 2 bad ones in your first 10 episodes. Like, we have all these cool dudes, and ladies, excuse me. But no, man, like kind of what you were saying. I don't know. I'm stuck on that whole victim thing now. You got me thinking about that shit. Like, because now I'm thinking of like the intuitive things I've been doing. I'm like, God damn, like it's because I don't want to be a fucking victim, like kind of like this. I think the military can give you a healthy amount of narcissism. Some people take it too far, usually like Marines, but like a healthy amount to where you're like, you think you're better than me? Like, fuck you, I'll show you,
Mm-hmm.
Like you can get rid of the stereotypes. I'm one of 2. There's me, and then there's a guy who's still in. He's a captain in the medevac unit here, and we're both in the physics program. I'm a senior, I think he's a junior. And it's like, we don't fit that fucking mold, right? Like, why are you here? You're not privileged and you're not a fucking nerd, right? It's like, I don't give a fuck, because this is the mentality that I was taught, and I fucking wrote it because it's nice. I can do what I want to do, and I'm going to fucking do good at it. And that's like, it's like, 'cause I'm not a victim. I can be like, oh man, I had such bad experience. I'm not good enough for this, and just sabotage myself. Like, I can't do this, I'll just go, work at the gun range or something and fucking sit on my thumbs. Like, no, motherfucker, I'm going to do great things. And like I said, back to my point, I think it's like a healthy amount of narcissism. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
well, and I think one of the hardest parts of acknowledging and finally accepting that you can do anything you put your mind to is now it's like, what do you put your mind to?
Yeah.
It's like, so I did the ultra marathons because that seemed like it'd be really hard. It did suck really bad. Some of them were worse than others. But I did that, and then knocked that out. I did the college. I was like, well, I want to prove that I'm not stupid. So I did associates, bachelor's, finishing up my master's in a couple weeks. And then it's just like special forces, like whatever it is, write a book, whatever it is. It just, once you figure out the roadmap, and it's like somebody's already done it, and how could I keep challenging myself in picking up things that no one would expect me to be able to accomplish, and then just prove that it's a simple thing to do, is to just decide that you want to do something, then go research the people who've already done it, and then do what the fuck they do. I mean, it's not complicated.
No.
And once you figure that out, then the hardest part becomes what to do. And I've honestly, until all of this, I was running out of ideas of things to try and, tackle, just for the sake of the challenge. So that's fun. That's freeing, and once you realize, how powerful your mind is and things like that. So, at this point, see where we could take the YouTube and these podcasts and, motivational speaking, but then the sky's the limit. You just need, I've already accepted that, we could just break off all these glass ceilings and do whatever, we want. But, finding the one thing, I don't know if you guys ever read that book, but that was mind blowing for me. It's called The One Thing. Okay. And it's just all about focusing, instead of being scatterbrained on a whole bunch of things. It's like, I think about success as like a series of dominoes. And instead of, like I said, shotgun blasting different things, if you focus on that one most important thing as the next target, you never know what that is going to sequentially knock down in like a series of dominoes, making so many of those things that you were trying to do unnecessary, because, it elevated your level of success, or it did it through accomplishing that one thing. But yeah, at this point, it's almost sad that these people choose to be victims, because they don't get to experience the freedom of being like, and having that confidence that no matter what I pick, I have the recipe for success. I figured it out, and I could just go make it happen.
Fuck yeah. Because I feel like if you're stuck in that mentality, you're going to be complacent. It's like, no, man, like I can't imagine not moving forward. Anytime I feel like I'm not moving forward in my life, I'm just like an asshole, and I'm like depressed.
Yeah.
Like, you got to be going somewhere at some time, learning something new. Even if it's like learning a new language, or, fucking mountain climbing, whatever it is, anything you think of, just to go challenge yourself and not be complacent. It terrifies me to be like, what I say a few weeks ago, like to be like a Roseanne. You're like fucking John Goodman and his wife just sitting around fat in her house all day, like in the late 80s. Like,
well, unfortunately, that's the way, like, guys our age, we were raised seeing that.
Yeah.
Whether it was our own parents or whether it was on these families on TV.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, do you remember that show? It was a sitcom, According to Jim. It had Jim Belushi.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I remember thinking, like, I want to be that guy.
Ugh.
He has this comfortable life and this good family. And as I've gotten older, I've drifted away from that big time. I can't be stagnant. No. I can't, whether it's even if I'm just sitting in my house, I can't just sit. I get up and start cleaning.
Yeah.
I have to be moving and doing something.
Yeah. Netflix and chill lasts like 5 minutes.
And don't get me wrong. I like to sit down and watch a good TV show or a movie or something like that. But I have there's times my wife will be like, would you just sit down? She's like, you're making me feel bad because you're up here doing all this stuff. And I can't help it. I can't be stagnant. And
people need purpose. We need drive. Yeah. And I don't know if you guys ever heard of the author Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
He did that. What is it? Think Grow Rich is like one of his main put him on the map books. But he did one. It's called Outwitting the Devil. And it's about him like having these conversations with his perception of what the devil would say. And it is insane. Like, I've listened to it twice already on audiobook just because it's just so good. And he refers to that as drifting. And he says, his perception of what the devil would say is that his biggest tool is drifters. They work for him. Their minds are, only to bring people down. And it becomes a habit of just drifting through life and never having purpose, and not knowing how to have a definite purpose with a definite plan and a definite way to get there. And having definiteness of purpose is just what successful people do. They decide they're going to do something, they figure out the route to do it, and then they go start chucking off each individual task until they get there. And that's just not, unfortunately, it's not how the majority are. They're drifters, and they kind of just float through life, and they get kicked this way and then they get kicked that way. And each time something bad happens to them, it's just like, it's like a ping pong ball getting popped over to the other side of the court, and they just go with the flow. And so they never, pick their own path and make it happen. Drifting is like the worst thing we could do.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that's like going back to what I was saying earlier, seeing guys like you out there who have a reach. I think it gives like that average dude who like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I don't know if I can do anything with my life. They see somebody being successful and it motivates them to try something. I mean, I think that's a lot of guys, especially in our age and older, whether it be Joe Rogan or whether it be Jocko or all these names that everybody fucking knows. You see these badass dudes doing all this cool stuff and you want to do it too. You want to do something cool too. Like that's why I started jiu-jitsu a couple years ago. I saw these other guys who were doing it. I've always loved watching MMA and stuff, but
love jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, me as well. And the main reason I started, I'm not gonna lie, I saw other dudes online who do jiu-jitsu and I was like, fuck, that looks cool. I want to try that. And if I wouldn't have seen these other there's average people that do that, I probably would have never even gone.
Yeah.
And so yeah, the guys like Jocko and all those guys, you see they do this badass stuff, and I think it's motivating, especially to the average guy, somebody who like myself, I work a normal job. I'm a normal dude, and then I see or I listen to podcasts, and for 2 or 3 years I wanted to do a podcast, but I didn't know how to go about it.
Right.
And Kevin and me had talked about it for a couple of years, and it was just kind of it's one of those things, you're talking about it, but you're not doing shit. And then we finally like, dude, let's fucking do it. Let's go. And we still don't know what we're doing. We're trying to learn it, and we're trying to become successful at it. And so far it's going the right direction. It's going slow, but I think in the long run, going a slow burn's better than getting success on something right away, because you're going to feel like it's going to be easy the whole time.
If we want to get successful, we can start an OnlyFans and like cook pizza naked or something. Like,
well, yeah, I mean,
there you go. Monetary value will go up through the roof probably too.
Well, that's the other thing. Like when it comes to monetizing, we're trying to figure out how can we monetize, because we're not huge. We have a little fan base going on now, but we're that's another goal we want to work towards, and I think it's important for people to have goals because it keeps you going. If you got all the success right off the bat and there's nowhere else to go, why are you going to keep doing it?
Right. Well, and that's a challenge I have. I would say it's a challenge I have now, is like, I do everything with like everything I got passion wise, and it works great. But at the same time, like I had to structure my life in a way financially to where I had the freedom to put everything passion wise into these projects. And at some point it's like, this can't, either the money's going to flow in on its own, or I have to, start taking more of a business approach and really start figuring out monetization and how we could, without degrading the brand and without losing the focus of truly helping people. How do we make money? Because you got to make money, otherwise it doesn't keep going. And this has been such a blessing for me. The last thing I wanted to do is, or not be able to do it full time, because it wouldn't end like, right. Cause I'll do it no matter what, but I want to keep going full time with it, cause that's super fun. So, at some point, whatever, that's the challenge. You just have to get creative and do some creative thinking until, we come to a solution, and somebody else has already done it. So we just got to find their roadmap to success and follow it.
Well, and that's something like, that's kind of a dream of mine, is to be able to do something like this for a living. That would be amazing. Right now, not in the cards. I have a full-time job. Kevin's a full-time student. We have families, all that stuff. So I wanted to ask you, because you have children and you have a family, correct?
Yeah.
How do you fit in the time? How do you manage your time in order to give them what they need from you, but also do all the things you're doing. I mean, you're doing other people's podcasts. You have your own, you have your YouTube channel, you have all this stuff, the book. And I mean, I find myself struggling sometimes, and we only record this once a week. And I know Kevin does too. He's got his kids, he's got his wife. We're trying to, it's like this balancing act of, I want to put as much as I can into this, but my family comes first, you know, and I'm sure you can relate on that. How do you manage your time with everything?
Well, honestly, if you ask my wife, it's probably not managed very well. I give this a lot, you know, but she's accepted that this is my career path now. So I have to treat it like a career. So like you guys go and do your 9 to 5s, whether it's school, whether it's work, you know, and it's easy to like jump on the entrepreneur thing and then forget that you still have to treat this like a job. And that's hard for spouses to understand sometimes, because there's like, well, you're home, so let's spend quality time now. And it's like, can't. I got this going on. I got this. I got to do, you know, I got to work still. One thing I do need to get better at, and, you know, my wife is 100% correct on this, is that I need to like pick a time to stop working and to put things down and give them the time that they deserve. And admittedly, I'm terrible at it, because it's like, I got this dumb watch now, you know, this I've never had. I don't like things on my wrist, but now I got a phone on my wrist. So I'm just like always connected to my job. And so, you know, balancing is tough for me. I'm not going to lie. I'd be lying if I said, oh yeah, I just give my family everything I got. Cause they honestly sacrifice a lot for me to pursue this as heavily as I do. Once I get passionate about something, it's like I open the floodgates, and balance becomes like a hard thing to do for me.
Yeah.
It's hard when you have an obsession, essentially, you know, like,
Yep.
yeah.
Well, and especially when you're trying to become successful at something you're not successful at yet, you got to put time into it.
Right.
You're not going to become successful if you don't put effort into something.
Like the way I see things, they're not the way I see it. It's an intrinsic part of me is I find something I'm interested in and I'm obsessed, and I won't stop until I win. I have to be at the top before I stop. Like I don't give up. Just like when I'm at the top, boom, now I can cut it back a little bit, or I lose interest. Like you have to be the best, though, not the best, but you have to win, right? It's all about winning. Like I've got to, you know, if I'm going to read 10 books in a week and I, for some reason, then I'm going to fucking do it and do something else, you know, like, so it's hard to just put it down. And it's hard to take other people's advice of, if you want to manage your time, you know, get up at 3 a.m. Fuck you. Because you know, like, you know, blast injuries do to your fucking brain. Like it's hard. Like my body wants 10 hours of sleep a night and I can't do it. I'm like, I'll give you fucking 8, you know, but it's like getting up at 3 a.m. isn't going to fucking happen because I can't get to bed before midnight. You know what I mean? So fuck your fucking advice from your steroid using goddamn, you know, celebrities, you know, get up at 3 a.m. Fuck yourself.
Well,
you know, like it's not happening. It's not realistic.
Time management,
you know?
Time management is something that I'm fascinated by. No matter who the person is, the busier the person is, the more fascinating it is to me.
Yeah.
Because that's something I kind of pride myself on, is I'm very good with managing my time until I'm not. And until I take something else on, like this podcast. Before the podcast, I never had a problem taking care of everything I need to take care of. Then you throw this into the, okay, now I got to, and I like it though. I like trying to figure out how am I going to fit the time in to do what I want to do with this thing. And whether it's, you know, this recording process of this is easy, as you probably know. This is the easy part. But as soon as we're done, you got to edit. You got to get it all scheduled to be released. You got to promote it. All this stuff, and it's especially stuff I have no idea what I'm doing. I've never done this before. I've never even owned a business, and I'm trying to approach it like a business. So time management for me is huge, and I think that comes a little bit from what I do for a living. I'm a truck driver for a living, and the place I work schedule is everything. You got to be on time. So I'm really good at judging, okay, how long is it going to take me to do this? And if I do it in this time, how much time I'm going to have to do the next thing? And I just find that fascinating. So guys like yourself, who you're a busy dude, especially lately with promoting your book and traveling and all that, I'm just always interested in how do guys manage.
I personally, what works for me best, and it's, I've had some friends that say do the same thing, is listing, even just a sticky note. Like if I don't list, I go too slow, right? So it's kind of like, okay, I'm getting up, I'm working out at 8, at 9 o'clock, I'm going to come back in, shower, I'm going to fucking eat, and then I'm going to knock out this one assignment or quiz and then hang with the kids for 2 hours. Like, so I just make notes. I just make a list of things until like 5 or 6 o'clock and then hang out with the family until they go to bed and then maybe do homework at like 11 or something,
That's the time I find to do a lot of, like, when it comes to editing and stuff of this, after everybody goes to bed.
Right.
That's my time. I can get some shit done. Yeah, I'm going to lose a little sleep, but you got to do what you got to do to make something you want to work.
Yeah.
So.
And listing helps, because if I don't list, things drag out. Like coffee takes an hour to drink versus 5 minutes, like, dude,
yeah,
it's just, I don't know, listing for some reason.
Yeah. So that's it, man. Right now it's just go, and it's not always easy. I got, Texas coming up. I got Vegas coming up. So a lot of flights. I got a lot going on, but at the same time, it's like the way I see it. And when I evaluated other people, again, because I don't just ask people to do it or recommend it, I do it. So when I evaluate other people's paths that got to where I'm trying to go, there's always, it's like a rocket. It doesn't matter how far yours goes up, right? Someone else's may shoot to, the moon, and yours is only a blip, but every rocket burns out. And I don't care who you are or what you've done, your time is going to burn out. And if you don't take advantage and strike while the iron's hot, or take advantage of momentum, you're going to miss opportunities. And then when it does burn out, and now all of a sudden things aren't, no one's asking you to be on their podcast anymore. No one's asking you to come out and talk to them. And you're going to be like, man, I really wish I would have just shut up, grinded, and pushed through, and so that's how I see it now. It's like, well, I'm striking while the iron's hot. And when, not if, once that, my rocket starts to burn out, and, people not wanting to hear what I have to say anymore, then at least I know I crushed it when I had the chance and did the best I could. And then I could focus on, YouTube and slowly growing that and just helping dudes.
Yeah. At least you're not going to look back and regret, like, fuck, I could have put some effort into letting people know who I am.
Right.
And you've done that. You're reaching out to people who you don't even know. And that's cool. You're putting yourself out there, and you're going on all these podcasts and you're doing all this stuff that you won't regret it later on. You're going to look back and be like, okay, whether your book is successful or not, you're going to say, okay, I did everything I could to get it out there. Where are you going? Where are you going to Texas?
So we're doing Mike Ritland's podcast in Texas, and then going to, was it Deviant Gentleman?
Okay.
Defiant Gentleman. It's this dude, Shane, he's really cool. And Tommy Vex from, I don't know if Tommy's going to be on with us or not. It might just be Shane, because they used to do it together. So Tommy Vex, he was the lead singer for, was it Bad Wolves?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So him and Shane did a podcast together out in California, and then Shane moved to Texas. So sometimes Tommy Skypes and they do it that way. But either way, Shane, his partner, he's got an amazing story. He was in prison, got stabbed. Like, I'm going to go and interview him. He doesn't know it yet, but I'm going to interview him. I'm going to be like, let's talk about your story, bro.
Yeah.
I was hoping you were saying you were going to Texas. You were going to do Rogan or something. I'm like, that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
I think that's everybody's goal.
Yeah. Obviously Joe's the goal, but I talked to a couple guys that have been on Joe and asked them, how does that process work? And they just like, dude, he just called you. I was like, you don't know when it's coming, and then he'll just call you and ask you to be on.
Well, I think when it gets, like, when people get as big as he has become, there's no more you're asking to be on his show. He picks who he wants,
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure that guy's probably so sick of people telling him, hey, I have somebody you should have on your podcast, so he probably, he can handpick whoever the hell he wants to have on there. But I'm sure, like, for a guy like you that's out there promoting something, that's like the goal. I mean, that's the biggest show in the world right now.
Yeah. Joe's the ultimate, but at the same time, I don't know, man, like, there's so many cool dudes out there. Like, I got Mike Glover in March. And so me and Mike are doing like a seminar where he said we're going to do like 100 to 200 people, come in for a seminar, and we'll do like a TED Talks and then record it. And then the next day we're going to film a podcast. So at the same time, like kind of like you were saying earlier, it's like, I'm just so stoked to be meeting these people and being able to get to spend some time with these guys, with Andy and Mike, and Mike Ritland. And it's to me, it's still super, super humbling that they even ask me on and want to talk to me and care about my story. So, if Joe ever happens, then cool. But if not, man, it's like, for me, I've already made it.
You're meeting cool people. That's another dude I'm a big fan of, is Mike Glover.
Yeah.
I like the way that dude thinks from what I've heard. I don't know him personally, but hearing him on podcasts and his Instagram or whatever, I like the way his brain works. And he's a dude I would like to talk to someday, just because I'd like to pick his brain. He seems like a special dude.
He is. And I was talking to him on the phone the other day, and like, yeah, I don't want to put his business out there, but after, like, what he puts out there about himself is not close to what he's done. And that is mind blowing to me. Like, like when he started talking about what he's actually done, I was like, dude, what? Like,
well, that's like we were talking about earlier. We were saying these guys don't have to go out there and tell you all this cool shit they've done, because they're fucking cool enough without all that.
That's like Pat Mac, dude. Doesn't talk. I mean, he puts his, like,
it's just him working out.
He puts like pictures up from like when he was in first group or whatever, when he in the 80s, and that's about it. And everything else is working out. It's like, from what I've heard, he was a badass motherfucker when he deployed, where it was like 07 or something like that. Like, I think he was a sergeant major at the time or something like that, or I can't remember, master sergeant. But anyway, he's just a badass motherfucker, and he just likes to work out, dude, and talk about
dude.
Men,
He actually let me send him my book. So, because I wrote him on Instagram, I was like, dude, I got a book coming out in like 6 months. And he was like, cool. And then I didn't think anything of it. And then it came out. So I was like, hey, the book's out. And he's like, cool, send it. And I was like, yes, he is an amazing dude. And he is a guy that doesn't talk about how amazing he is, but what he did talk about. And I think it was on Joe Rogan. And I remember working out and listening to it, and it was super inspirational. Was he talked about being an alcoholic and sleeping in his garage on the couch.
I remember hearing that.
Yeah. And when he started talking about that, I was like, that's my dude, man. Like, those are the kind of people I gravitate towards, because it's like, he don't need to talk about how he was CAG and how he's probably done some of the, he's probably been on missions where we all know the mission and you just don't know who were the players in it, but instead he's going to come out and talk about, his struggle with alcoholism and sleeping on a couch in his own garage. It's like, those are the kind of people I really like. And, same with Mike. I told Mike, I was like, dude, if you tell people about what you've done, like, people's like jaws would drop. And he's just like, yeah, I know, but I don't. He's like, I don't need to do that. Like, it's not, something I want to, rely on. And, Mike, his cool thing is he's really, again, it goes back to like helping people. So what is Pat doing? He's trying to help people get in better shape and be super physically fit. And I don't know how old that dude is, but he looks better than I've ever looked in my entire life. You know what I mean? Yeah, and then what is Mike doing? Mike is trying to help people prepare themselves in case they need to be in a survival situation. So at the end of the day, it really comes down to, are you trying honestly to help people? Mm-hmm. And if you are, your path is going to be different. Are you trying to help yourself make a name for yourself so you could be some kind of celebrity or influencer? Or are you legitimately just trying to help people? And because everyone knows it. The minute your mouth opens and you say a single word, everyone knows.
Yeah. I have the same affinity for guys like that as you do. Guys that can be vulnerable and tell people when they fucked up. Then when they have other options, they could go down that road because they have done some really cool fucking things. Mm-hmm. And they could tell people all about these cool things they've done. But instead they choose to show you a different side of them, and they're, like you said, they're trying to help people, and
Yeah.
that's, the world needs more of that.
Yeah,
It does.
You see it really quick if you get put in a shitty situation. The power fucking blacks out for a week. Who are the people helping other people? Or there's a flood, who's helping other people?
Who's buying up all the toilet paper?
Yeah, and who's buying all the fucking toilet paper and being self-serving? And that was what we talked about. Who was it with? Rob McQueen. Like, I was telling the story just about, like, we had a mass casualty incident in Afghanistan, and the Green Beret medics didn't even fucking hesitate. Like, before I could get my shit on and go out in QRF, these guys were already on their fucking 4-wheelers racing out there, and half of them got fucked up in a second IED blast. And they didn't even think about it. It's like, we don't give a fuck if you're regular Army. We lived together. It was 3234. We lived with them, and they fucking helped us. If they knew we were suffering, they didn't think twice about it. And that shows the character they had. They could have just been like, oh, it's not our fucking problem, and fuck you guys. But they didn't even hesitate to go fucking sacrifice themselves, essentially, And those are the kind of guys that, make you, like, want to be a better person. Like, fuck
Absolutely.
yeah. Like, I'm not going to sit here and feel sorry for myself. I want to be that fucking guy, no matter what.
Yeah, the world needs more people like that, selfless people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even if someone's not that way, they should strive to be selfless. And I know I like to help people, and yeah, it feels good to know, hey, they know that I helped somebody, but it should be the act of actually doing it that makes you feel good. And even if you're not doing it, you should strive for that. Strive to be selfless. Strive to help people.
And I think the vulnerability side for it is, I don't know if this is like a new thing, or if this is a trend that's been going on for a long time, and I'm just new to being open because of my own life. But when guys like Pat talk about his struggles, to me, it says, here's someone that I look up to that is, like, clearly a stud. He's accomplished way more than I ever have in the military and in so many ways. And then I could say, okay, he went through it. So if we start doing that more often, what if the guy that is struggling with PTSD and struggling with thinking about suicide or struggling with alcoholism, what if he starts to think of stories of guys he looks up to and remembers that they struggle with it too, and that they went through those problems, and he goes, all right, my dude got through it, maybe I can get through it. And I think that we might have done ourselves a disservice for a long time by doing this whole macho man thing, because now it's like, well, my idol would have never felt like he wanted to hurt himself. He would have never, drank too much and passed out like an idiot, and so all of a sudden you start thinking that you're just a shitty person and you're failing, and that the people you look up to would have never done that. And it's just not the case, because, guarantee everyone's got skeletons in your closet. I don't care who you are, you've made some mistakes. We're human.
No, absolutely.
100%.
It was hard to touch on it the other day, and it still kind of is, because it's a subject you'd need to analyze for about 3 hours on a podcast. But, like, think about the Native American culture. They see a battle or someone kills somebody, and they're like, hey, we're going to go fucking heal now. You're going to sweat it out. We're going to talk it out. We're going to let our emotions go, and we're going to resolve this so it doesn't become a problem in our tribe, right? Versus us. And this goes back to, we can say it goes back to, the 1800s, but then we can also track it back to the fact that we came from a very religiously controlled environment in Europe before we came over here, right? So we took advantage of other people. It was about not being emotional. It was about just obeying and serving God and not being vulnerable, right? And not being honest with yourself. And then coming over here, and then we come into more and more people not growing on their own land. So they start drinking more. And then you have the prohibition because people were drinking way too much. Then you go into a second world war, and people are coming back up, and they were raised in the 20s and 30s. So they're saying, okay, how do I deal with this? Oh wait, yeah, that's right. You drink yourself, and you shut the fuck up and you do your job. Carry the fucking boat, right? Isn't that Andy Goggins or Goggins? Goggins? Yeah, carry the fucking boat. Stop fucking crying. Yeah. So these people were raised in the Great Depression. It was drink your sorrows, shut the fuck up, and don't say anything. And it worked for a long time. until people started waking up and they're like, wait, this doesn't work. In fact, this is a new concept. The whole shutting everything down and drinking your sorrows it's something new that we can essentially created a couple hundred years ago. And it's not the right way of handling things, but we're so raised on, we've been programmed to think that way. So now we're like, that's fucking weird. What do you mean? Like, talk about it, think about it. No way, dude. Like,
be vulnerable, man. It's hard to do, but I think people should do it.
Well, yeah, you got to learn how to do it. You got to learn to be comfortable in your own skin. And if you're around people who don't acknowledge that, then fuck them. Because I guess in the whole, the new way we call people toxic, I guess they're toxic, right? Because they won't allow you to feel that way. It's hyper masculine environment. It's like the military, it's hyper masculine environment, which it pays off, I think, in certain situations overseas, just not when you're trying to raise a family,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we got a weird thing going on in our culture, but I mean, the whole, like, you don't want to be you don't want to not talk about your feelings so you don't get, and be too manly or whatever. But then we also have this, like, was it toxic masculinity thing going on? So it's like,
right.
But at the same time, I know people kind of feed into that. But my perspective on that is just like, do what you know and feel is right. You know what I mean? Don't try to fit whatever, like, new term our society has going on, or the new trends of toxic masculinity and all that. Like, if you can get so caught up in that stuff, like, who cares, dude? Just do what you know is right and try to help people, and you will find the right path and you will make the most sense. Don't try to, like, because a lot of people, they're like, well, they just get into these battles with these people on social media, or that because they got a little clout about some word and they want to be called hymns or whatever, pronouns are getting argued about and bathrooms are getting argued about. My whole perspective on all that is just stay out of it.
Yeah.
And focus on doing the right thing and being true to myself and being honest. And I think so far, and I don't have a very big platform, and this may bite me in the ass later, and I'm okay with that. But so far it has worked to just be honest and try to do the right thing, regardless of what social media trends are going on. Just ignore the hell out of that shit, because that's a grenade waiting to go off.
Yeah. You got to be genuine, and it's hard sometimes not to feed into that. Like, wait, am I the fucking bad guy here? Because everyone's saying I'm bad, right? Like, Gina Carano got canceled from Disney because her Twitter account, her, like, gender pronoun said bebop boot. And so, like, oh, she fucking hates transsexuals or whatever. Like,
that was a combination. She also compared how Republicans are being treated to the Jews in Germany, in Nazi Germany, which was not right to do. That's kind of fucked up.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
But yeah, she compared how Republicans are being, or conservatives are being treated to
she's been
Nazi Germany.
She's been punched in the head. So. but
yeah.
But that's the thing. If she just stay out of that shit and don't try to, like, win against this thing. And it's not like weak to be like, oh, I'm going to stay out of it. And I'm not saying, don't have your own beliefs, but at the same time, like, if you listen to the guys like Napoleon Hill, and, to me, Jordan Peterson took a huge stand against the pronouns and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But he is so intelligent that he is not just, like, throwing his opinions at people. Like, Jordan Peterson is one of, I think, our generation's, like, greatest minds, of people that we could actually talk to and see and touch, of that are here right now. He's one of the greatest minds. So for someone like him to make a stand against pronouns and things like that is on a different level than a normal person, because a normal person is just throwing their opinions around, and they want, everyone to give the validity to their opinions. And it's like, dude, your opinions don't mean anything. Like, they're zero. They're just a waste of space out there. And the minute you start thinking that your opinion matters because, you did 10 minutes of Google on something that, makes you feel good and gives you a warm and fuzzy, in reality, you're probably missing 98% of the damn facts. So it's like, just stay out of it. If you don't want to be somebody that truly obsesses over the facts and has their shit together, because then you're not throwing your opinion out there. Then you're you have a hypothesis based on all the information, and likely you're going to come at it from an approach that's not so one-sided anymore, because you've empathized, you've done your research, you dug in. So dude, and then even what you guys mentioned, I don't know who that is, but just the fact that she's even so worried about how Republicans, I don't know, it's just too much. It's just landmine after landmine. Like, I think we go on a tirade, but I think the media in general is just it's a huge problem. The fact that as a country, we've allowed our media to be so biased, and the fact that we have a CNN and a Fox is just wrong. Like, the media's job is to report factual based news. It's not to convince me to vote Republican or Democrat. It's not to, like, it's just it's so haywire right now. Like, I don't even watch it. I can't watch it.
No, it's scary, and
we are a joke to every other fucking country because of the way they see us.
I don't think that many people in America really take what Fox News or CNN says as gospel. I think it's like, because I mean, you look at ratings for those compared to ratings of some podcasts, the ratings are nothing.
Oh, really?
More people are listening to podcasting and other new types of media than they are that stuff. The problem is there is people listening to that stuff, and whether it's Fox News or CNN, people take it as gospel, and they think that's they're reporting the facts, and they're usually not. It's usually, like you said, an opinion, and it's an opinion from somebody that's happens to be on television, and so people take it like, oh, that's the facts, and that can get scary. But like you said, that we could go into a whole damn thing about that, but we'll let you get out of here, because I know we've been on for a while. We didn't even touch on much of your military career or your police career, but I wanted to talk to you about some other things you haven't been talking about on all the other podcasts you've been on. So
no, and I appreciate that. It's fun to get away from my story a little bit and not just hit the same things, because it gets to be a lot. It's like
I can imagine.
So it's every once in a while it's fun to just talk and have podcasts where we just bullshit, and I appreciate it.
Well, speaking of your story, what's your book called? When's it coming out? All that good stuff.
Yeah, so the book is Rising Above. It's on pre-release now. The hardcover is shipping right now. That was kind of a weird thing. I didn't set that up. That's on the publisher, but the February 23rd is the official release date. You could pre-order, and then so the Instagram is Sean Buck Rogers, and the YouTube channel is the FNG Academy, and that's it. That's my spiel.
Awesome, man. Well, I'll be promoting this episode all week. I'll tag you and everything. Feel free to share it and all that good stuff. We'll get your name out there to some more people.
Sounds good. I appreciate you guys.
All right, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, see you guys.